Hello, Ron.
Hello, Clive.
So exciting! We've had correspondence.
Yes,
And
but from someone, a listener.
Yes,
Really?
from two listeners.
Two?
Yes,
Get out.
via YouTube.
Okay.
Okay, so
Were they trolls?
No, no.
Okay.
I'll read them to you.
Oh, great.
First, in reference to our, is that running? Yeah, it is. Yeah. In reference to our "If Footmen Will Tire You, What'll Horses Do" and "Burning Hell"
Okay,
episode.
right, yes.
Bishop Lake, who I believe are a metal band.
Okay, not an actual bishop.
You never know, maybe both.
Okay. Yeah.
Has written, "Great podcast. As a former Southern Baptist, I can assure you that Estes Perkle was probably 100% sincere in his belief and message. His style was very common here in the southern US in the 50s to the 70s. His style of presentation was common in mostly rural areas due to the common perception of the bigger city being a hotbed of hedonism, which is a callback to their beliefs regarding Sodom and Gomorrah."
Right.
There we go.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for...
Yeah.
That was a metal band who wrote that.
Yeah, hang on. I suppose
Okay.
we better plug them. What's the? They have an album, I believe. I did have the title of it here, but I don't anymore. But they do have a song. They've got a video up on YouTube for their song "Esteemed in Darkness."
Okay, great.
So there you go.
Excellent. And what the name of the band is one more time?
Bishop Lake.
Bishop Lake.
Yes.
Bishop Lake?
Bishop Lake.
Okay, good, 2 words. Okay, good. Well, thank you, Bishop Lake, for listening. Well,
Cheers.
Nice to...
And then on our Dev, Adam and Bat Pussy episode, Gino Cuddy
Okay.
writes, "Love this show. Listen to this one and the one on Dakwar Lazme Spogmai," the Pakistani cat piece.
Right.
"I can see Clive and I have the same taste in movies. Lol. I'm the guy who runs the channel where you found Dakwar Lazme
Oh, really?
Spogmai."
Okay.
Well, the thing is, unless he runs YouTube, but I'm guessing it must have been pilfered from another blog or
No,
something.
I believe it's his YouTube channel he's talking about. Because
No, because I went to his YouTube channel and it wasn't on there. So I'm guessing he must have put it up on like a blog or something, and then from there, so maybe he assumes. Anyway, get back in touch, Gino Cuddy, and clear it up.
Great, well.
I hope to hear more reviews. You love this bit, Ron. I love to hear more reviews about these obscure Turkish and Pashto movies.
Okay, sure, yeah, okay.
Maybe even.
I have to say, I'm learning to appreciate them a little more. So,
Okay. When that happened.
Yeah.
Maybe even some Taiwanese monster movies, and Godfrey Ho. Keep up the great work, gentlemen.
Oh, great.
There we
Well,
go.
thank you very much.
Yeah,
Well,
Gino Cuddy.
that was a big surprise.
Yeah, you do seem genuinely flabbergasted.
Yeah, I'm flabbergasted. I really thought that no one was listening to us at all.
Well, at least Gino Cuddy and Bishop Lake, maybe even the whole band.
Yeah, great.
At least 3 or 4 members, maybe,
Excellent, yeah.
listen.
So, well, but we should glean from this that I guess the specifically the ones that they were commenting on maybe are the type of things maybe we should focus on.
I don't know.
Great. Well,
Yeah,
thank
anyway,
you very much for
thank you.
everyone listening.
Yeah,
Thank you,
yeah.
and everyone else.
Cheers.
And if you are listening and haven't written in, please write us. So let
Yes.
us know that you're listening. Yeah, it's
Not that we're desperate or
no,
anything.
please do. I mean, no, don't. Just yeah.
So-
I mean, if you want to. You know.
So, pushing the pleading aside, let's get into this episode of The Magic Morning Wood.
Magic Morning Wood. Magic Morning Wood. Magic Morning.
With me, Clive Davis, and him.
Ron Scott.
And we've hit upon a kind of different way of doing things, haven't we, Ron?
Yes, we're changing things. Now that we have listeners, we're changing everything.
Yes. Now, yeah. It'll be Adam Sandler films all the way. So, yeah, the idea is to kind of we might not do this every time,
Right.
but we'll see how it goes. We're going to choose a theme in turn rather than a movie. So I choose a theme, Ron chooses a theme, and then that theme, I choose a movie, Ron chooses a movie connected to that
Right.
theme. So thematic double bits,
Right.
basically.
And we, not sure yet, but we may or may not split them up into parts, so it make it easier for listening. But right now we'll keep this one as a double one.
Yeah,
and see how it goes.
If you prefer shorter episodes, if you don't know how to use that complicated pause button,
right? Yes, it is tiring.
It is difficult, I know. But anyway, we know how entitled today's audience is,
Yes,
and
of course.
Yeah.
So.
So today's theme is the musician's biopic theme.
Right.
I came up with this theme.
Okay.
And Ron chose a musician's biopic, which we'll talk about later on.
Yes.
And I chose one, which we'll kick off with, I guess, called The Life of Chikuzan from 1977. This is a Japanese film, isn't it, Ron?
It is, yes.
Right.
I was nodding, but of course that doesn't translate onto
No.
audio. Okay, right, so.
It's a different medium.
Yes. Right.
Japanese title Chikuzan Hitori Tabi, which is, I noted, looking at the title, I would guess, actually, a lot of Japanese people wouldn't actually read it as Chikuzan Hitori Tabi.
Really?
Where the two symbols are bamboo and mountain, right? Which you would pronounce as Takeyama. Now,
right,
so
right.
you see that you say, it's someone called Takeyama, but a Chikuzan would be an alternative way of pronouncing.
Pronunciation. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't think I even looked at the kanji. So.
Right. Yes, and this is the life story, or the first half, I guess, of the life of Takahashi Chikuzan, who is actually called Sadazo in the film.
Right.
No one ever refers to him as.
It's like a nickname of some kind.
Yeah. And he was almost totally blind, I guess.
Yeah, it seemed like he was like blinding, or like it was. He said a couple times that he could see a little bit, but it was like blurry shapes and stuff like that.
Right. Almost totally blind, traveling shamisen player.
Right.
And the film kicks off with the real Chikuzan Takahashi.
Right.
Since dead. At the time, I guess, 66, 67 years old or something.
Years older.
And I think this is a show at, I think he had his own theatre in Shibuya for a while.
Oh, really? Okay.
Where it was almost exclusively just him playing shows and talking about his life and stuff. And so we're introduced to him telling us about the beginning of his life, and then we go into basically a feature-length flashback. Right. The biopic, and occasionally we go back to him and he plays his shamisen. So that's the kind of basic setup. Don't know where to go next with this one. You talk for a bit, Ron.
Okay. So it was basically this guy. He's like in his 60s, telling the story of his life, and it seemed like it was almost like a performance, almost like it was almost like he was doing a show. It was like a one-man show about his life that was just in cutting away to the flashbacks kind of thing. So, but it seemed like it was almost like him as the narrator was the narrator of a one-man show that he was writing and performing about his life.
Yes, I think that's probably the case.
And he may have actually done that. I
think so. Yeah.
And so it just tells the story of this guy who he had gone blind because the doctors screwed up when he was a kid. I guess he had the measles.
Right.
And rather than letting them breathe, they swaddled him, which increased his fever and then actually made him go blind. So he was blind because of like a medical mistake, which is and holy crap, this guy had a shitty life.
Yes.
Yeah. It reminded me of, like, I don't know, other movies where just like everything, like what else could fucking go wrong for this guy, right? It was like. Right, it was just like everything was like, oh man, really more? And so, I'm surprised he even made it to his 60s. Like, so basically, he's just a homeless guy, essentially, who he's a, what do they call it? A wandering musician.
In the subtitles they have him as a strolling musician.
Strolling musician.
Which sounds a bit too nice.
It sounds
very laid back.
Yeah, He's literally just a homeless guy who travels all over Japan playing the shamisen.
Right.
At people's doors and hoping that they will come out and give him food or money.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's literally his life. And I was like, is this... Well, it was really like dedication to your art, I guess, is what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, he basically had no life. He had no possessions, nothing else except for like his shamisen that he just walked around in freezing cold with no shoes and stuff like that, and just walk around. Please give me money while I play for you. That's it.
Right.
Not even like people who want him to play for him. He just stands at the door and plays until they open the door and give him something, right?
Right. Yes.
And maybe they don't. Sometimes they just punch him in the face, like that one guy did, right? So.
Yes. Played by one Ryuzo Hayashi in the flashbacks, and just to give it a bit more context, so this guy was born in 1910 in Aomori, which is the northernmost prefecture on the main island of Japan, Honshu. Which is actually a place I'm very familiar with because that's where my wife is from. So part of the...
Famous for apples.
Yes. Part of the appeal of this film for me actually was seeing some places that I was actually quite familiar with.
Oh, really?
Because during the course of the film...
Even now, like, it must look very different, though, of course.
Oh, well, for instance, when he goes to the Osarazen... that...
Try again. Someplace in Aomori.
Yeah. Well, we've both got it now. Yeah, in Aomori.
I was...
Osorozan Temple.
In Aomori.
Right, which is it's either 800 years old or 1200 years old. I can't remember which. It's pretty fucking old.
Right.
And I've been there a couple of times, and it's famous for a lot of sulfur streams run off the mountain where they built this. It's an awesome place, actually, especially if you like overdosing on sulfur fumes, which is a favorite of yours, I know.
Farts.
So, Fart Temple looks pretty much the same now, as it did then. Nice. And so that was one place. And so, for most of the film, he's travelling around the north, the northeast, the northwest, Aomori, Sendai area. But then a little bit later on, he does go down to like Osaka and stuff, doesn't he?
Hiroshima or something.
Yeah.
Interestingly, when I was watching this movie, I didn't watch it with my wife. I asked my wife if she wanted to watch it, and then she seemed so interested, so I didn't push it.
Before you continue, did she know who Chikuzan?
This is what I was going to say. Okay. Right, this is my point. Thank you for interrupting me.
Yeah, no worries. So anyway, what I was thinking was
that. But I did ask her, "Do you know who this guy is?" Just Chikuzan, and she was like, "Oh well, like all shamisen players are blind." That was her thing. It was like apparently it's a bit of a stereotype to have a blind shamisen player.
Okay.
And so she didn't know him specifically, but she knew. But apparently it's like a thing to have a blind shamisen player. So I don't know if maybe he was the penultimate one or the kind of the example of one, and then there's other ones that are like him, and maybe they've all kind of forgotten their names, but he was just that kind of person, because she seemed to think that it was like a thing where many many shamisen players were blind people, and it was like that he himself was not famous, but that type of person was more famous.
Well, I'm guessing if
how about your wife?
No. Oddly enough, even though she comes from there, she wasn't familiar with Chikuzan.
Maybe not that famous, maybe.
No, I think he probably is. I mean, but maybe if you're not...
Maybe he was.
Yes, maybe that's more the case. Yeah. So, and I certainly, if you're interested in traditional Japanese music, you would know him, I think.
Right.
But if this story is typical, then I guess it would make sense, right, that maybe... I mean, who else would take up this lifestyle other than people fit to do nothing else in a way, right?
Really, I was like, what is she?
We've got we got this blind kid. He's useless. What should we do with him? I'll just send him out with
give him a shamisen, let him go make some money.
And he also plays the shakuhachi flute, doesn't he?
Which he learns during the movie, right?
Right.
He doesn't when he starts, but he finds someone that teaches him. So
there's a lot of ins and outs, and there's considering he did have a shitty life though. Of course, this is just who they chose to play the roles. He had quite a number of attractive women in his life.
I'm assuming they weren't really that attractive
That's
in
good
real
looking,
life.
do you think?
But I mean, I don't know, right? So yeah, especially the blind one he married at the end was quite.
Yeah,
pretty,
yeah,
right?
and there's Mitsuko Baisho and Hiroko Isayama, who I recommend, who I both recommended and recognized from some like pink sex movies from the 70s as well.
Oh, really? They're porn workers.
Well, softcore. One of them was
Softcore
the one who kind of goes along with him for a while as a fling and then gets bored.
Oh, okay.
She was very familiar.
Oh, really?
But I couldn't identify the actress, the one who the teacher gets pregnant.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I couldn't identify who she was.
Oh, really?
And I was sure she must be someone because she has a major part in the film and she's quite beautiful. But
maybe it was just
maybe
they just found her and then she never did anything ever since. Right?
I don't know.
It's possible, yeah.
So there's a lot of ins and outs, and like you said, it's basically this guy's kind of shitty life,
right.
And he I suppose towards the end of the film it becomes apparent that that's all he can do.
Yeah.
But he can do it
pretty well.
Yeah. So it's an interesting. I suppose it's a somewhat austere film.
Right.
Like it's very kind of stripped down
right.
and bleak and almost kind of docudrama looking.
Right.
Although there are oddly enough occasionally like the odd slapstick comedy moments.
And I find I don't know if it's just the style of acting. I don't watch a lot of Japanese cinema, and certainly not from the 70s, but I don't know if it seemed like anything it seemed like everything was really aggressive. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not just sort of like when you get angry or you're having an argument, it's not like da-da-da, it's like and you grab his shirt and you shake him around and you like smack him around. It was like everything was a lot more violent than I expected it necessarily to be. Like, you didn't need to grab his shirt, and at that point you could have just yelled at him. You know what I mean? So,
right.
I don't know if it was the style of.
It's interesting.
Do you know what I'm talking about, though?
Well, maybe I think sometimes when you become over familiar with something, you maybe don't notice anymore.
Yeah, I noticed it, and I don't know if it's the Japanese style of acting or if it's just that kind of cinema, that time period, or if it's I'm not sure. It felt like really more physical than it needed to be. I don't know if that was just the director's choice or that particular movie.
I'm trying to put myself in because I watch a lot of Japanese movies from the 70s, so I suppose I kind of take it as read.
Right.
And not that this is necessarily typical of, but it's not that unusual either. I get what you mean. I suppose for a film that is ostensibly kind of docudrama style and very kind of bleak and austere and more or less realistic, it does have this heightened acting style.
Yes, I think that's probably one area.
Which I think is maybe a kind of Japanese via kabuki kind of thing. The kind of more post 1950s, I guess, in America and Europe, I think we're used to like a more kind of realistic kind of style, less stagey, maybe more for the screen. Right. We've talked about this a little bit before, but whereas this seems a more performance kind of, even in films that you think wouldn't have that,
Right.
So I think it's maybe, I think it's not specific to this film. Let's put it that. Yeah. So directed by and written by Kaneto Shindo, who died in 2012, who's actually one of the greatest Japanese filmmakers to my not necessarily. This isn't necessarily one of his best.
Is he
films.
famous? Is he famous?
Yes, he's famous.
Because even my wife hadn't heard of any of the actors or in the.
Well, the actress who plays his mother, Otawa Nobuko, she was Shindo Kaneto's wife in real life.
Right.
She was in, I suppose, his most famous films now are his horror films. He made like Onibaba and Kuroneko, which are films I've been thinking about doing.
Right.
But because this just happened to come up in relation to the theme, right? So, because I'd never seen this before. This was the first viewing. And
how had you heard of it? Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
How had you heard of it?
Well, I think I was just familiar with it in general because I like Connector Shindo. But actually, I think what really put it on the map for me actually was a friend of ours who almost certainly isn't listening unless I tell him to, and he might. Timothy Harris.
Okay.
Who's an actor here, ladies and gentlemen.
Here being Japan, of course.
Yes. English guy who's he used to be RSC or something. He's something Shakespearean.
He's done lots of Shakespeare. So
but I mean, isn't he actually from one of?
I'm not sure. I don't want to speak for him.
No,
but I know he's very, very familiar and learned about Shakespeare and stuff. So
right. A scholar anyway. A scholar of the theatre, and you've acted with him, haven't you?
I haven't actually acted with him. I just know him by reputation, seen his shows, and he's seen mine. But we never actually.
Yeah, I've acted with him, and a very nice guy. Mm-hmm. And he used to be friends with this guy called Alan Booth, who died a long time ago. But his friend Alan Booth wrote this book called The Roads to Saturn, which was a memoir of his journey on foot from the southernmost tip of Japan, from the northernmost tip to the southern. I can lend it to you. It's quite an interesting read, actually. And I think either in Alan Booth's book or Timothy Harris talking about his friend, this came up.
Right.
So
yeah. And so Tim told you about this movie?
No, I think he wrote about it somewhere because Alan Booth died. Wow, when did he die? Maybe even in the 80s, I think. So he died young, and since Timothy has kind of I don't know why I just called him Tim, but no one calls him Timothy. Tim
sounds more regal, I guess.
he's been kind of keeping his name alive a bit, kind of getting
Timothy.
Yeah, Alan Booth's name.
Timothy is keeping Alan Booth's name. Right?
Yes, by using a name that no one calls him.
So
anyway, clear as hangover piss. So occasionally, Tim, last year, a book of Alan Booth's collected writings came out. Right. So occasionally, because Alan Booth has a bit of a kind of cult following among people who like travel writers or specifically Japan travel writers. Right. So Tim's been interviewed here and there over the years. You can find stuff online. Yeah. Okay. So I think, I think.
So Alan Booth wrote about this movie.
Either Alan Booth or Tim Harris, but I think both of them were fans, I guess, or at least interested in the subject matter. Okay. So that's how it came to my attention.
And so, did you choose this theme because you wanted to watch this movie?
No. Actually,
So why did you choose the theme? Let's go back to the theme. Of all themes that you could have chosen,
it just came up as a good theme.
Okay.
And then I couldn't think of anything. And then I thought, oh, hang on. Rather than rack my brain trying something I have seen, why not cast the die and try something. I was glad. I mean, I would have got round to it at some point.
Right.
Anyway, but so just to finish up, back to Kaneto Shindo. For a Kaneto Shindo film, this is actually, especially if you factor in the kind of slightly odd slapstick comedy scenes from here, and it's actually this is one of the more what's the word I'm looking for?
Accessible.
Maybe, yeah, and more kind of exuberant Kaneto Shindo films. Like Onibaba and Kuroneko, for example, are amazing, but they're almost, I would say, kind of like ritualistic or something. So I can imagine they're not for your...
They're not realistic.
No, they're highly stylized, but also they're kind of, they're not made... there's no concession to like giving the viewer an easy time. The films take their time. I mean, they're utterly absorbing and brilliant, so it doesn't, when you make those kind of films, sometimes if everything clicks together perfectly, like clockwork. It doesn't matter, a 6-hour film can feel much shorter if it works, right? But it's a bit of a gamble to, it's a sign of confidence, I suppose, sometimes when directors they try and hurry things up and they don't have the faith in their material.
Right.
But so his wife, who played Chikuzan's mother, and there was I think it was the guy who goes around dancing with him for a while.
Okay.
Played by Taiji Toniyama.
Right.
They were
the thief guy, right?
Yeah. Oh, no, not the thief. That's Takuza Kawatani. He's the one with there's more comedy about him.
Oh,
right?
okay, right.
And he is a very familiar. He's very memorable face, right?
Mm.
And he's in loads of Yakuza films and sex movies and things from this era. So I was familiar with him. But this guy, Taiji Toniyama and Otawa Nobuko, played the mother. They both starred in one of Kaneko Shindo's more famous films called The Naked Island.
Okay.
And this makes The Life of Chikuzan almost feel like a Michael Bay film. So it's basically a couple farmers on an island, and it's just look at these two people. I mean, their life is even more harsh than Chikuzan, almost. It's a great film, but I can imagine if you kind of weren't in the mood for it, then it would be kind of hard to swallow, maybe. But it is a great film. But so compared to some of his other films, I think this was a bit more accessible, maybe, or closer to
realistic.
But not one of his classics. Although I did enjoy it. What did you make of it, Ron?
I enjoyed it. I didn't know what to expect. So I had no expectations going in and stuff like that. So, but it was interesting. I felt really bad for this guy, and I couldn't really understand why he was living this life. And then it's he's basically just a homeless guy who walks around playing music, and his wife's like, "Oh, I found you a wife," and I was like, "Whoa, well, who?" I was very surprised that not only did he had 3 wives, was it 2?
Yeah,
3 wives. I was like, for a homeless guy, he's doing pretty well for himself, right? So
definitely punching above his weight with all of them.
Sure, so, and then every time he turns around, something else, he goes back to school so he can learn how to. What was he learning how to do at school?
To read Braille,
I guess, right? So,
but he had too many calluses on his fingers
from playing stuff. So, and then of course he ends up getting kicked out of the school because the teacher gets one of his classmates pregnant and then blames it on him, and and he ends up taking responsibility for it. Just to so it was just guy had a terrible life. So but I'm glad he got out of it and became famous for it. So good for him.
Yeah. And apparently this movie was played at the Moscow Film Festival.
Oh, really? Okay.
And Kaneko Shindo and Chikuzan went there. So apparently it was the first time he'd played outside of Japan and stuff.
Right.
And I'm guessing because he's involved, I'm guessing it's all pretty much true, right? I mean, it's not as if,
as far as he remembers it, anyway.
Yeah, and I don't see anything it's not as if there's any telltale signs. It's not like what's the word?
Trying to make him look self-right.
Yeah, what's the word I'm looking for? What's it called? Hagiography. It's not like hagiographic. It's not like making himself look
right.
Yeah. It's not like halfway through, and he also discovered he had the biggest penis known to mankind, or there was nothing. It was.
That was in my version. That wasn't. That was in your cut.
Oh, you got the.
I got the director's cut.
Yes.
Get it? The director's
Yeah, I do.
cut.
Yes, that's brilliant, Ron.
Yeah, thanks.
Anyway, so there's nothing self-aggrandizing, or it's not as if he's made himself look great or like a great guy. So I'm assuming it's pretty much on the money.
Fairly true.
Yeah.
It was definitely worth a look. I mean, I didn't. It was a couple hours of entertainment. I was enthralled with this guy's shitty life.
Right.
After a while, I got started to get. It was a little bit long. It could have been a little shorter, I think, just in terms of okay, he's back on the road again. No, still doing it. Okay, it's like it just seemed like it was just like it. I had similar feelings when I saw The Revenant. If you remember, if you've seen The Revenant,
yes, yeah.
which is like, oh come on, another thing. Like,
another thing. Yeah, that was too long.
Like another one. I mean, come
Right.
on. Like it was just like how many shitty things can happen to this guy, right?
Both based on true stories as well.
Yeah,
Although
I
I
guess,
think
yeah.
Revenant maybe somewhat more embellished.
More embellished,
maybe.
yeah. So possibly this
Yeah.
wasn't quite as embellished, but it definitely So
The other thing that
surely it wasn't as bad, right? He didn't get
Right.
mauled by a bear or fall off a cliff or anything. But
the other thing that's in the sequel, Chikuzan harder.
Chikuzan harder. This time it's personal.
One thing that piqued my interest as well, not cinematically so much, but at the very end of the film, someone turns up like a folklorist or like an archivist or something, and then says, "Oh, hello, I want to record you," basically. And I wanted more of this because it reminded me of, I don't know if you're familiar with Alan Lomax.
No.
Alan Lomax is, well, there was other people, but he's the most famous, the most well known of the kind of American folklore archivists who travelled around the South and recorded like blues singers, like in the 30s and 40s, and and his story is kind of quite interesting as well. And for instance, when they would record in these rural areas, they didn't have any electricity, so the machine they used was it was powered by like this rope and pulley system with a stone on it. So as the stone would drop, it would revolve the turntable, which had like I think it was actually wax on it, like a wax disc, and then this big fucking needle would carve the music into the wax.
Right.
But then, of course, the wax would be in danger. This is actually how they made those records. It would be in danger of melting.
Right.
But there was no places in those areas to transfer it.
Right.
So they'd pack them in ice, send them across the country, and then someone would make an acetate out of the original.
Really?
It's kind of amazing that those things exist. Yeah. So I'm curious what the story was in Japan, like how they went around recording these people.
It didn't really go into anything after that, but I was assuming, because obviously it became famous and relatively well off, I guess, after the big events of this movie.
Right.
Enough to become famous. I'm assuming that was the beginning of the next chapter of his life, which was when he started to become famous. Like I recorded his stuff, and somehow it got known or whatever, and then he became sort of like a famous guy, right? Because of that, right? So
as far as I know, his
because until at the end of the movie, he still was just a guy walking around playing.
Right.
So it wasn't like he went anywhere, right?
I don't think, as far as I know, his autobiography has ever been translated into English, because I would be interested. Because maybe he wasn't because in the example of the blues artists, for example, when they were rediscovered in the 60s, they went round playing like international festivals and things, and they played to biggest crowds they'd ever played to in their life, right? But I don't know if Chikuzan actually did become like quote unquote famous, or if he was just had some wealthy patrons who just kind of kept him going, and maybe only a handful of people went to his little club in Shibuya and saw him play, and someone was just playing the bills to. So I don't know. I'm not sure if he did. I don't think he played supported the Beatles at.
But he was famous enough to get a movie about his life. So
yeah, but it's a Kaneto Shindo movie. He's going to make movies about. Yeah, he made Naked Island about some farmers.
Anybody, right? So it could.
Yeah.
Be, so.
I clearly he's a notable.
Figure.
Player.
Yeah. But by the end of the movie, he wasn't. He was just still a guy who walked around playing music. So
until this guy recorded.
Until this guy. So I'm assuming that the recording was the beginning of him becoming something else, right? Whatever. I don't know his level of fame, but at least it probably stemmed from whatever happened.
Yeah. He went from
nothing to something, right?
Yeah. It's an interesting little film.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, it was worth a look. Yeah, so if you can find a copy of it,
right?
Any recommendations of how you might find a copy of it for our listeners?
No.
Tough shit of luck. Sorry, guys, everyone.
No, I don't. I'm not sure.
Where did you find it?
A man left it on my doorstep and ran away.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah. Your Honour. So, Kaneto, oddly enough, the other thing about Kaneto Shindo I wanted to mention was he does have a celebrity fan, or at least one celebrity fan that I know, because they had a Kaneto Shindo film retrospective. I think it was somewhere here in Japan a few years ago, and apparently the a guest speaker and major Shindo Kaneto fan was Benicio del Toro, of all people.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's the final word.
So who's the celebrity fan?
Very good.
Oh.
Fuck you, I like Benicio del Toro.
No, I like it. I was being
You're just being humorous. Facetious for humorous effect.
Yes.
Right, while Ron works on his facetious for humorous effect, we'll have a little musical interlude here, I guess a bit of Chikuzan.
Okay.
So we'll see you guys in a little bit.
Like a banjo.
Yeah.
And we're back.
There we go.
Okay.
Do you think we solved it?
Yeah, I think they believe it.
Right.
So continuing with our theme of
yes.
Anything else to say about Chikuzan before we move on?
No. Other than, I suppose we should, at least, we didn't think of, it's Tsugaru Shamisen, which is the bit, Tsugaru is that kind of bit of land at the very tip that pokes out into the sea, and the Shamisen sound of Tsugaru is like specific to that area. It's kind of slightly different from other Shamisens. Right. And I think, if I remember correctly, other Shamisens, the skin of the main, what do you call that bit of the body of the shamisen is cat skin.
Really? Okay.
But the Tsugaru shamisen is dog.
Dog, okay.
Yeah. And I think someone told me somewhere else.
And that changes, I assume it changes the style.
I guess.
Sound.
I mean, to be honest,
Okay.
to the layman, you probably wouldn't. We probably wouldn't.
Hear it.
But the style is different. The Tsugaru style is more that kind of attacking, hitting kind of sound. Right. Okay, we're gonna have to do another musical break now.
Okay.
Okay.
Play it, Clive.
I might actually put a real bit of Chikuzan this.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, here we go.
Okay, well, so moving on with our
Yes.
theme of musician biopics.
Yes.
We've gone to the other end of the spectrum.
Yes, because you made a mistake, didn't you, Ron? When I said musician biopic, you misheard, and you thought I said twat biopic. Because what have you chosen?
So I think I didn't make that mistake. So so I've gone basically the other end of the spectrum from sacrificing your life for your art, Chikuzan, to basically the
Sorry, I'm just moving around.
Life of hedonism and drugs and rock and roll, portrayed in the brand new Netflix film The Dirt, and from a 1977 obscure Japanese movie to something you can find on Netflix that just came out there. So.
Just came out earlier this year, right?
Yes,
March
so this is
or
our first time to do a brand new movie.
Yes.
So I've never done this
So
before.
just to clarify again, because I think the title got slightly lost in the verbiage there. It's
The
called
Dirt.
The Dirt.
The Dirt.
There we go.
Which is the biopic of the rock and roll heavy metal band Motley Crue.
Yes.
I was you chose this theme of musician biopic, and I was just trying to figure out what I was going to do, and I had a few on my list, and then I saw that this movie was being released, and just when I was trying to decide, it was like the day it was released on Netflix, and I was like, well, I intended on watching it anyway, so I was like, well, I might as well just use this movie because I haven't seen it yet, and it seems to be it fits in the thing, and I'm going to watch it anyway, so I might as well just use this one instead, right?
Right.
And I think it's a good bookend for your choice, which is basically, despite the fact of being in the same quote unquote genre, it's about as different of a movie as you could possibly make.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
And I just want to say, I don't know. I'll ask you your opinion in a second.
Okay.
But I wanted to say that as I watched it, I was watching it, and as soon as it finished, I pushed stop. I turned it off, and I said, Clive hated that movie.
You would be correct.
I literally said that to myself.
Did you watch it by yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. No. Pretty much. This
as I was watching, I was like, "Oh man, I should have chose this for the Valentine's Day special." Right?
But then again, as I was watching it as well, I had the feeling that. I mean, I don't know if maybe you didn't have quite such a strong reaction, but I'm guessing you didn't thoroughly enjoy this yourself.
Well, I sort of enjoyed. I'm sure I enjoyed it more than you did, right? But
that wouldn't be hard.
I'm sure of that. But it was, it definitely was not great. But it was.
No.
I enjoyed elements of it, kind of thing.
Okay.
So I found a lot more to like about it than I'm sure you did. But certainly it was. Yeah, it definitely was not that great of a movie.
So, for those of you who are lucky enough to have never heard of Motley Crue, they were this band.
They are. They're back still together.
They're not.
They are. They reformed last year. I looked it up. So
Because that's one of the things I wanted to actually because it's slightly. But now that you mention it, because one of the things we'll get to all the bits that happen, but basically near the end of the film, there's a thing when they get back together, and it says, and then Motley Crue played for another 20 years together, and they're climbing up the stage, and I'm thinking, fuck, does this count as a downbeat ending? Is this is more depressing than the ending of Seven, that Motley Crue are getting back together?
kept going, right?
So they were this
head in a box,
and they do call themselves a gang of fucking idiots. To be fair, they do. Tommy Lee, played by I can't read my own writing.
I got it here. Tommy Lee, played
Coulson.
by Machine Gun Kelly.
Yes, that's his rapper, aka. But what's his name?
His name is actually Coulson Baker.
That's the one.
Coulson Baker.
Okay.
And then it's Vince Neil, the lead singer, played by
Daniel
Webber. Mick Mars, the guitarist, played by
Ewan.
You can pronounce this for me.
Ewan.
Is it Ewan? It's not Ewan.
Ewan.
Rion.
Rion.
From Game of Thrones fame. Anyway,
yes,
he was the most famous one from Game of Thrones.
Okay. And you're asking me that because he's Welsh, aren't you?
No, just because I've never actually heard his name pronounced
right.
correctly, so I thought at the very least...
He is Welsh.
Yeah, he is Welsh, and
Yeah.
I thought at the very least you would be closer to the pronunciation than I would be, so...
and Douglas Booth.
And then Douglas Booth played
Mickey
Mickey Six.
Yeah. Douglas Booth is... Douglas Booth, I remember, I just thought he's another kind of,
He was in he was a couple of those kind of teeny kind of movies like Jupiter Ascending and he was in Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
But then he was quite good in, I saw him, because for me I kind of knew he was in that film, The Riot Club, and I thought, he's another kind of, he's not untalented, but just pretty boy.
Pretty boy.
But then he was in The Limehouse Golem, playing Dan Leno, and he's quite good in that.
Yeah, I mean, he's not, to be honest, all of these actors were not that bad. I thought they're all fairly decent actors.
That's true.
Yeah. I thought, Ewan is I'm saying this wrong. Ewan, is it Ewan?
Ewan, I guess. Yeah. I would say Ewan, yeah.
Ewan, and
Ewan.
Really good. Ewan, and despite the fact he's a rapper, I thought Machine Gun Kelly was a pretty good actor. I thought he had a lot of exuberance into his role and stuff, and Daniel Webber is from, I know him from 11/22/63, that miniseries.
Did he play Oswald?
Yeah, he was Lee Harvey Oswald, and he was also in the Punisher TV show, so I know him from those ones.
Okay.
But he was, they're all decent in their roles, especially considering they're all kind of real people and stuff. And it was based on I should say that it was based on the autobiography written by the band.
Ha! Yeah, sure it was.
Apparently.
It's
ostensibly.
It's their man Neil Strauss, isn't it? So basically, Neil Strauss did all the heavy lifting.
Yeah. Well, the ghostwritten by him, I guess.
Yeah. I think he's on the cover. I don't think
not ghostwritten. Yeah, but he basically interviewed them and then he wrote it himself. Yes.
So he wrote it.
Yeah, he wrote it. Yeah. So, but anyway, the biography book about them, right? It was based on that, right? So, and so it's. I saw it was coming out, and I was waiting until closer to the podcast to watch it. And I know someone else who watched it, and I asked, they'd seen it, and I said, "Oh, well, how is it?" Because I was waiting to see it because I'm a little bit closer.
Right.
And they kind of went, "Well, it's like one of those and then I came in movies."
Right.
I was like, and this is when I came in, right?
Because they all narrate.
Yeah, they all narrate, and it's all like the fourth wall is broken kind of thing, which I was sure you're going to hate.
Well, I think the reason I dislike it is just because it seems overplayed at this point. It reminded me of so many other things, especially when they did things like this didn't actually happen.
But I got the impression it was appropriate for them. You know what I mean? That style of storytelling. Right. I think I felt it fit them and and the kind of people they were.
I think this might actually be the crux of it.
Than a basic just realistic.
I think this might be the problem, and why I actually don't feel qualified to give an opinion on this film because I hate Motley Crue. Right. So this film might work if you don't like Motley Crue.
Well, I was a fan of 80s rock but Motley Crue was not one of the bands I ever listened to. They were a few years before my time. They were a little bit earlier for me. I was kind of late 80s, early 90s. So they were. I knew some of their songs. I like some of their bigger hits and stuff like that. But I'm not super familiar with their catalog. And I never owned a Motley Crue album, so I can't really say that. But I can't say I hate them. I enjoyed listening to their music if it's on, whatever, some of that. But I've never gone out my way to actually buy anything by them. Right. But I at least can listen to the music without retching, which I assume you can't.
Well, to be honest with you, I suppose I'm not familiar enough really to. They're just a band I just remember being around, and just thinking I don't like that, and then not pursuing it any further. So if I'm going to be totally objective about it, I'm not sure if their music is, much worse than any other kind of hair metal thing that was around at the time. But I'm not going to go out and find out either. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing for me there. Right. So, so that could. But even with that in mind, so you could say I'm not the target audience, right? But even with that in mind, there's things I think that don't work. Like there's a couple of moments which are supposed to be like moments where you think like, oh, cool, oh fuck yeah, moments.
For example,
well, there's two. Which there's one where they're rehearsing for the first time with a singer.
Yeah.
And there's a girlfriend on the couch.
Yeah.
And there's like and she goes like, holy shit. She goes like that, right?
Yeah, and they're onto something here.
Yeah,
right?
and I suppose it's supposed to work because the rehearsal sounds awesome.
Yeah.
But
it didn't.
No. and I don't think it's just because I don't like it. I think it's because it's the scene plays out awkwardly because they've already been rehearsing. Mm-hmm. We've already heard what they sound like. Yeah. And then they do that, and they sound the same.
Right.
So when you have this big reveal...
Yeah, I agree. Because they had already been playing to her before that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then she was kind of like, wait, these guys aren't worth your time.
So as I was expecting, holy shit, I thought, there's going to be a cut back, and like someone's done something stupid, like put a bottle through their neck or something. But it didn't. It was just, they sound cool.
Yeah, and I took the impression that it was supposed to be that she wasn't really listening at the beginning, but then she started to really listen, kind of thing. But I agree that could have been handled better.
And the other one was when they come up with a name.
Yeah, right.
So they're all sitting around and someone writes something and then he pulls a bit and it's got Motley Crue written correctly. And that's supposed to be like, I've always like that's it. I'm thinking that's just a shit name anyway. It's funny because they made the point of having Mick Mars always saying, "Oh, that's a terrible name." Always making fun of other bands' names. Right. And then he's the one that came up with that one, which is supposed to be this great name because he's the one that's always down. But I think we're supposed to be on side with them, though, right? I think we're supposed to think,
like, that is a great name.
And then one of them takes it away and changes the spelling and puts the umlauts on it.
But he doesn't because he never actually shows you that they put the umlauts on it.
Oh, do they not?
And so he basically says it and does it,
right?
And then it cuts to them on a marquee.
And then they look at each other and they're like, and that's just like. To me, it was.
I was hoping
it would be like if there was a scene where someone like if they brought out what should we do with this apple or something, and someone like peeled it, and then everyone went, It's just. I don't understand. I just don't get it.
I was hoping that they were going to explain the umlauts because I never really understood it and I didn't know why it was there. And other than to look cool, but I thought there had to have been a story behind it, but apparently there isn't. It's just they thought it looked better than the original.
Is that even the German spelling of crew?
I have no idea.
I'm guessing it's from Motorhead, right? That's the band that did that metal base with the umlauts.
Maybe they were just stealing from Motorhead, I guess.
So that's the other thing as well. I suppose musically is one thing. One thing or another, whether you like Motley Crue, but I don't think anyone, even Motley Crue fans, I don't think Motley Crue fans would say that Motley Crue were pioneers of anything. Right? So that's the other thing as well that doesn't sit right with me is why a biopic. Well, actually, I know why. It's the hedonistic lifestyle part of it, right? Because I think that's what the book
focused on.
Yes, which have you read the book?
I haven't. No.
No, I read Neil Strauss's other one, Game, which was the book he wrote about pickup artists and stuff like that.
Right.
And I'm guessing it fits right into that. The people who like that book would like The Dirt, right? Because it's The Dirt, right? It's all the stuff about the groupies and the bad behaviour. And then, just like Game, there's probably a bit of last minute kind of, moralising and, but, actually what counts is who you are and stuff, and you're reading it and you're thinking, you can say that after you've fucked thousands of girls. So on that, how do you think they did with because just to put it into context as well, it was directed by Jeff Tremaine, right, who was the guy who made the Jackass movies. Yeah. So you would think, that might be a pretty good fit,
right? Because he wants to do a lot of like the Jackass review, right?
Yeah. So my problem, I think, with this film as well is it falls between two stools where there are a bunch of assholes, right? Yeah. But if I'm going to watch a bunch of assholes being assholes and being gross and fucking misogynists and all this, I want to see it done properly.
Oh yeah, you thought that they didn't go far enough.
Not really.
Yeah, it was. I think it was because of the Netflix thing. Is that they were
Yeah.
doing, they did more. I didn't expect there to be any nudity at all. I thought it was going to be like a full, like, at the very least, just like a R-rated, like a rated PG-13 kind of idea. Like that they're going to show the bad stuff but not really show it. And I was surprised that they actually went to the point of actually showing nudity and stuff like that, right? In the shooting episode, it went farther than I expected it to go, but not as far as it could have gone. Is what I mean.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, because
having the platform on Netflix, I expected to be a lot more like, and even though it does say it's rated adult, I'd expect it to be a little bit more okay for anyone, you know what I mean? So, but
what's annoying about it then, see, they throw in all this other stuff, you know, and there's like the kid gets cancer and dies, and they make a very small concession to Tommy Lee's notorious wife beating when he punches one girl in the face. Right.
Yeah.
There's no mention of Pamela Anderson either.
No, actually, specifically, they cut her out.
Yeah.
Apparently, they were married when the kid died.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
So actually, she would have been around for that.
Right.
Kind of
yeah. So I don't mind necessarily a biopic being selective and kind of, they all are to a certain extent, right? But it just felt really like, because on the one hand they try and like humanize them, I suppose, and they look, you know, but I'm not sure if that they're not interesting people. Really, they're not evil, but were they assholes? Yes. Did they fuck it? Yeah, they, and that's kind of, there's no real wrestling with like the darkness or. So that's the thing. It's stuck between this two. It's just a bit blah.
Yeah, I agree. There was a feeling of kind of blahness to it. I mean, again, I enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
Okay.
But it was, but it definitely felt like something was missing by the end. Like it was, they could have taken it more. They could have done more with this, or the kid's death felt a little bit shoehorned in just to have some drama. You know,
in a way,
the tear-jerky kind of.
I found that more distasteful than anything else, just because they do this kind of pay lip service to it thing.
Right.
It's like,
and then it kind of brings them, you know, and I don't know, and at the very end, it's sort of like it's what brings them together. But it felt like felt like disingenuous, just because it was so far after the fact that he was out drinking and they found him and they said, "Hey, we're here for you," but they weren't there for them, right? Because he was. It was like this was like a year later or something.
And there's the friend. I don't know who that's supposed to be. The British guy who comes over and dies in the car crash.
Oh, that was a true story. That was the lead singer of that band. It's a New Zealand band called what they said it in there. What was the?
The only one that I'm thinking of is In Excess, but he didn't die in a car crash.
No. They actually said the name of the band.
All right, because I couldn't. Yeah. Because the way he was running about when he first entered the scene, I thought it would be Slash.
Yes, yeah,
very Slash-ish.
Slash, yes, yeah.
And then when he died in a car crash, I was like, I'm pretty sure Slash is still alive. I figured out it wasn't him. But
it was Hanoi Rocks.
Okay. I see another band I don't really know anything about.
I wasn't familiar with them.
Although
it was Finnish band.
Yes.
I thought they were New Zealand for some reason, but for some reason anyway. So it was Hanoi Rocks.
Wow, you couldn't have chosen a more film.
Never mind. Sorry, forget it.
Anyway, that guy from the Hong Kong band.
Yeah. So it was the guy from the lead singer of Hanoi Rocks.
Right. Okay.
So he was a real guy, and he really did die in the car.
Who I'm assured by people who know a bit more than me that Hanoi Rocks are actually probably quite good.
Right.
They're one of those bands apparently that their name got through in with all those other ones, but apparently they were doing something
different with stuff.
Yeah.
Until the guy died.
And then he didn't do much of anything. I don't know if they carried on without him. I don't know. I know nothing of Hanoi Rock. Who knows? I might start listening to them. They could be my favourite band.
And that was one thing also the movie kind of glossed over a little bit was the new singer. When they replaced Vince Neil at some point, they had this new singer for a while. And then it was sort of like they didn't even... I don't think he even had any lines. It was just sort of a guy was there. Right. And then he wasn't. Right? It felt a little bit like... It felt like they were trying to hit a lot of points, but they didn't have enough time to hit all those points, so it was a lot of it
Yeah.
a little bit too kind of like, oh, and then we went on here, and then we went to here, and then we went to here, and then we went to here. So it was
Right,
It felt
right.
like, it felt that it could have been better. I mean, I didn't mind the style, the breaking the fourth wall stuff, because I felt like it kind of fit here, but I think the problem was that they were trying to cover too much stuff in too short of a time, and it felt a little bit too glossed over.
Yeah.
And so they were trying to just hit kind of the main points, and it ended up feeling disingenuous.
Yes,
altogether.
I understand what you mean. Plus, they're covering Motley Crue, so it's like, yeah.
But I mean, like, I'm okay with the hedonistic, like asshole lifestyle. I was interested to see what they were going to do with it, if they were going to able to humanize.
To be honest,
right?
one of the bits in it that I almost thought was quite good, what actually related to the only bit I thought was kind of interesting was there's a brief segment where they talk about this was a typical 24 hours on tour,
right? Yeah,
and they go through the waking up and then going to the. And I thought that was kind of quite well done because you were thinking. You watch that and you're thinking, yeah, wow! Imagine that, just a cycle of this, fucking exhausting. How could that even be anywhere near enjoyable? Really,
exactly. Yeah. Which I think is I think a lot of like touring band biopics try to, or biographies in general, just try to tell how exhausting touring is and how So it did a little bit. I mean, it had successes.
That was the only bit I liked. I think. Some people play Dave Lee Roth, Ozzy Osbourne, and Heather Locklear as well. Yeah. I thought the guy who played Ozzy did a pretty.
I thought he did a good job, but to be honest, I think Ewan Ryan actually really looks like Ozzy Osbourne. I think he would have been.
He does.
I thought he would have looked like Ozzy. He would have played it really well himself.
Yeah.
And interestingly, I mean, I was not a big Motley Crue fan. I knew Motley Crue,
right?
But I knew of the. But the thing is that I knew Tommy Lee from the Pamela Anderson and sex tape and all that kind of stuff, and I knew of him, and he was kind of a bigger like personality. And I was shocked that he was kind of portrayed as almost the nice guy of the group, which is not his real. What he's known for in real life, right?
Right.
And then I know who Vince Neil is. I've heard of Vince Neil, and I'd heard of Nikki Sixx. Nikki Sixx also is pretty famous. But interestingly, it seemed like the only really talented person in the whole band is Mick Mars, and he was the person I'd never even heard of. I never heard of Mick Mars. I was like, who's Mick Mars? I was like, oh, that was the guitarist for Motley Crue, and it seemed like he was actually the one who actually could play.
Right.
So I don't know why it is that he was the one person I'd never heard of. So.
I noticed I was looking at the script writing credits. There's why can't I read my handwriting? I think it's Amanda Edelson, and the other name was this guy called Rick Wilkes. And Rick Wilkes' other screenwriting credits include Airheads.
Oh yeah,
which I quite like.
I actually like Airheads.
That's a much better kind of. In that kind of metal kind of.
Speaking of I don't know, this is very off topic, but when I was in high school, that movie came out, and a friend of mine
a good Adam Sandler film.
Yes, but not. Well, he was just in it though. He was so I think there.
Although I think he does.
He wasn't the main character. He was
isn't it him though who does have that line? I'm going to stab your heads off. Which is a pretty good line.
There's one line from Airheads that my friend used to quote all the time, and for some reason I always say it. I still say it to this day, and I don't know why it stuck with me. But it's someone says like, "Oh, you guys are crazy," and this guy comes and goes, "You guys are crazy, man. Y'all like woohoo and shit." For some reason, I always that line is stuck with me till this day.
It's actually quite a good film. I think Airheads. I remember enjoying it when I haven't seen it in
years.
But I think it might still hold up.
Yeah.
And I remember it always starting that train of thought in my head as well, because the gag is they're the Lone Rangers.
Right.
There's like four of them.
There's four.
But then I was thinking
I think three. Yeah.
Well, hang on. Wasn't the Lone Ranger? Wasn't he always with Tonto?
That's true. Yeah.
So
Lone Ranger wasn't Lone Ranger.
So
they're not so
airhead
as they.
And he also wrote another pretty good film with a slightly kind of tangential connection, The Stoned Age. Did you ever see that?
I think so.
It was kind of around the same time as Dazed and Confused,
okay,
and it was a very similar kind of. Yeah, that was good. But then he also wrote. Well, he wrote this, but he also wrote Triple X.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. But was that because of the script, or was that because of Vin Diesel? I don't know.
I have no desire to figure out.
Have you seen it?
Triple X. Yeah, many years when it was new.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think I saw. I think that I saw the one with Ice Cube.
Oh, okay.
But I don't think I saw the last one with when Vin Diesel came back. I don't think I saw that. I think I might have seen bits of it on a plane.
I think I saw maybe just the first one. But
okay.
Anyway, so yeah,
there you
the Motley Crue. There's a Motley Crue for you. There's musician biopics from a shamisen player to
some twats.
Some twats who talk to the fourth wall.
Yeah, that's it for this time.
Anything else you want to say about Motley Crue and the Dirt?
Don't listen to them. They're horrible. Don't watch the film.
If you're a Motley Crue fan, it's worth a look out.
If you're a Motley Crue fan, you can fuck off now. Basically.
Same old Hampstead, Kenham Waxet, Dead Sea bath salts, jog-proof iPod, Iron Age Hill Fort, long-term roadworks, high-tide birdwatch, Big Q home base. If Jesus came to earth today, they'd crucify him straight away upon a cross of MDF, and they'd use no need for nails. Ship-shape farmhouse, dry stone wall chart, cashback foot spa, straight down Ladbrokes, low-cost school trip, ram raid Oxfam. Christ, that sun's hot. Yes, that's right, sir. Oh, help me, Mrs. Metlicox, I don't know what to do. I've only got 3 bullets and there's 4 of Motley Crue. Spoiling Good Friday, my ex-love sent to me 12 drummers singing, 11 chairmen dancing, 10 mascots whinging, 9 stewards flapping, 8 christening invite, 7 cows a barking, 6 vicars strumming. Nick